So I get this from a lot of uh, couples, especially couples in their 20s and 30s, the reality that life is so seasonal. Like we're constantly in motion, and I think it's easy for us in relationships and in life to forget, you know, where we are. That um, we're constantly in motion, we're constantly moving, things are always happening, and that's good. Like our lives are vibrant, the things that we're doing are important, and we're growing, we're shifting, and I think it's easy, especially whenever things go wrong or whenever things are going really well, that we don't acknowledge where we are in the season of life that we're in. I know for me and Em, one of the things that we have known in the past, or in the very recent past, is we're in a season of building, which um, we see in some ways you really are in a season of building, especially in your 20s and 30s, and can absolutely be that in 40s and 50s. But in your earlier adult years, you really are in a season of building careers, building families, building hobbies, interests, relationships, and it's just a building time of life. And like I said, it doesn't downplay the building that it definitely happens later, but it's not just constant building. There's also seasons where there's greater hustle, there's greater sacrifice, and there's also seasons where there's necessary rest and replenishing. And what I'm getting at is, are you willing to acknowledge where you are in this process of, hey, we need to realize that we are, for the next 3 months, building like crazy. Which means that we say no to certain things and yes to others. Whereas after that 3 months, then we pull back and we reevaluate ourselves, our relationship with the kids, the business, the home, the finances, right? Or even being able to look at seasons and go into, hey, this is really hard, this is difficulty, and now that we need to be in a season of healing, or even being able to reflect on a season of healing or growth. The beautiful thing about coaching is that a good coach, and something that I really value and have benefited from, and I am committed to even sharing with my clients, is being a place that reminds them of where people have been, where relationships have gone, because it's easy to forget. And some of the most impactful calls that we've had in our marriage have been ones that we are reminded of. Remember when you guys only had one kid, and the hardships that were faced there, and now that you have three, those conversations have changed, and it's really good. And it complements what we believe, one of the things that we hear in I think it's Simon Garfunkel, there's a season, and it's in the book of Ecclesiastes, and we hear songs and principles about how there's a season of grief, there's a season of joys, there's a season of hardships, there's seasons of everything. And it's really important that we actually acknowledge that, because it helps us pace. It helps us play the longer game by knowing that life is seasonal. Like the kids are in school, they're not in school. It's the holiday season. It's not the holiday season. It's a time to prepare for a certain goal, to save money, to maybe spend money, right? Like, or both and. It's not either or, right? That allows us to pace ourselves. It also is used, in my experience, to just reflect and celebrate and rejoice, and like, wow, here we are, like, in our early 30s, and we're doing things that we talked about in our 20s, and it's awesome. And that means we're just getting started, really. And it's really important, I think, in a culture where a lot of people are always trying to strain and work towards something, which is awesome. There's nothing wrong with it. That we actually reflect and celebrate what small steps, maybe unnoticeable steps that nobody talks about, nobody cares about, but you talk about in your marriage and in your home, and reflect on to celebrate, so that you can celebrate where you've been. And so I think that's something that we just downplay in our culture, is this remembrance and this realization and acknowledgement of seasonal changes, seasonal growth, seasonal happenings, so that we can connect with each other, so that we can celebrate with each other, so that we can actually evaluate, hey, what's wanted, what's needed by me in this season, right? Because especially those of us who have small businesses. Business is constantly changing. The world is constantly changing. So, what works this month may not work next month, or what works this year may not work in 3 years, because of the way that the cycle, the seasons take place. And so, I would encourage you, if you're having a hard time with where you're at, notice where you've come from, notice where you're going, and also just even acknowledge, like, hey, this isn't permanent. So because we're not permanent beings, we're, like I said before, we're constantly moving. So I think it's really important that we acknowledge the seasonalities of life, and in our growing up and in our development as a couple, as people. And it's good. It's a good thing, because that means we're not stagnant. And so seasons are good things, and seasons that we didn't plan for, seasons that we did plan for, are all there for a reason, and they all help us become who we are currently, and who we will be in the future. So seasons are really important in relationships and in our own development. And I would say that if we don't aren't in tune with what season of life we're in, or what season our relationship is in, it could be very exhausting. And so don't fight it, actually embrace it.